There were several things. I have always been connected with government and with the legislature. Early in my career, I was trained in several different fields. Economics, I have a master's in economics, and my first degree was in milling technology and business. Along the way, I also became a teacher and have taught school, a school principal, and a school superintendent. So I've always been interested in government. As a superintendent, many years ago, we had poor funding of education, and a group of us began to meet. They were lobbyists. I was at the time lobbying for Small Schools Association and being a superintendent at the same time. We lived in Topeka with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old during the session, a couple years there. I learned a lot about government. The thing that brought me to run was during that time, it was a combination of large districts, small districts, agricultural interests in the state. We developed studied the funding. At that time, we had sales tax and property tax. And that was our main funding for education. And I think there was a gentleman by the name of Paul Fleener, was a lobbyist for the Farm Bureau, that came up with the two-legged and three-legged stool story. And that was that a two-legged stool was not sturdy, would tip over, and could not survive. And that we needed 3 legs, and the 3 legs were sales tax, property tax, and income tax. That was very important. In the process of what's happened in the last couple years, it's evident that the changes in the legislative session of 2012 went to extremes. Our funding problems that are here today date back to 2012. We've always had funding problem, and there's never enough money. Budgets, that's why we have budgets. But when you go in and take the amount of money that we've taken out of income by reducing taxes, the state has all sorts of problems. When you destabilize the funding, this is why, and I've always studied the revenues and what the carryovers were in the state budgets. Being an economist and statistically, I guess that's the nerd part of me. I like studying that type of stuff. And when you get into that and see where we're headed, I'm very concerned. And I ran just mainly because of that. I have 3 grandchildren here in the Topeka area, 1 in Topeka High School and 2, or it will be in Topeka High School in a year, and a second grader and a kindergartner. We're having difficulty funding education. We've done strange things to the tax. We've disappointed the public in that when the recession came, we told them we would put on a sales tax and take it off. What did we do? We not only put it back on, didn't take it off, but we also increased it. 10% sales tax is not fair to the population as a whole. It favors the wealthy that can put money away and not ever have to pay sales tax, and the poor are paying an unfair part. The whole system needs to be revisited, and we need to decide what we should, how we should fund our state. We must get control of our finances, because basically the state of Kansas is bankrupt. We've used every dollar we could to prop up the 212 law, trying to say that it was going to create jobs. It hasn't. Every statistic you look at, construction jobs, Kansas ranked 49th out of the states this year, because they did not, because there's no highways being built. Our economy is slowing, and due to our tax cuts, of all things. I've never really believed in a trickle-down effect, and this definitely proves it. For that reason, I decided to run for the state legislature. Well, I've answered that to a degree. Financially, I think I'll to an old term that was used in earlier civilizations about taxing. In the Roman Empire, which they were probably one of and the Greeks, they were the early forms of representative types of government, limited in some ways. But there was a term in Rome, because of what they taxed. The Roman Empire would go out and collect oxen. They were a commodity that was a barter system to a degree, and the Roman government would get off on debates on what they should tax, and they always referred to it as whose ox was going to be gored. Well, taxing is that. Somebody has to pay taxes. And so in this coming session and one another, that's going to be one of the critical things that we deal with, is where are we going to come up with revenues, and how we have many needs. Our highway systems and one another we're ranked number 4 or higher in the United States. We'll be in the bottom part in a few years, because if you are building and keeping up repairing 1,200 miles a year, we dropped to 200 last year, and this year I don't know whether we have 50 out there. We have some few bridges being replaced, but as far as the state's concerned, the only cones, those orange traffic cones that we see, are where counties or cities are doing something. The state orange cone is an endangered species. There's just not many of them out there this year, and haven't been for several years now. Long term is trying to keep up with technology, automation, robotics, trying to, a lot of it is going to have to be at the federal level, but how we change and how we retrain people so that they can provide a service of value and a way of making a living. We're going to see the one I think is probably the biggest change we'll see is there will be, within 5 years, trucks beginning to go down the highway with nobody in them. It probably will be in limited areas on turnpikes and one another, because the robotics of it and the computer can probably drive that truck more safely than a human can. We're going to have to constantly be looking at what we need in our society and how to provide it. I think the exciting thing about that is that every generation, I believe, since the founding of this country, each one have lived better than one before. And I do believe that it will be a rather rocky road to travel, but in the end, I think we will solve a lot of those problems, and the quality of life and one another of all of our people can be better.